Admiral Taiwan stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital command station, watching the stars with tired eyes. He was 53 years old now, and he had spent the last 30 years of his life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Behind him, holographic displays showed the Sol barrier, a massive energy shield that surrounded Earth's entire solar system. It had been there for 200 years, keeping humanity safe and isolated from the rest of the galaxy. The barrier shimmered like a soap bubble in space, beautiful and deadly. Nothing could pass through it without Earth's permission. Not weapons, not ships, not even messages. It was humanity's way of saying to the galaxy, "Leave us alone." Taiwan remembered the stories his grandfather told him about first contact, how excited humanity had been when they discovered they were not alone in the universe, how Earth's diplomats had traveled to the Galactic Council with hope and wonder in their hearts, and how quickly that hope had died. The Council had 47 member species. They called themselves enlightened and peaceful. They said they had not fought a war in 3,000 years. They looked at humanity and saw something ugly, something primitive, something dangerous. The human diplomats were arrested within a week. Their crime was thinking violent thoughts. The Council had telepaths who could read minds, and they did not like what they saw in human heads. Humans dreamed of conflict, of competition, of struggle. Even the kindest human had dark thoughts sometimes. The Council called this evil. Earth's diplomats spent 2 years in Council prisons before they were finally released and sent home with a warning. Stay away from civilized space. Keep your violent species contained. Do not spread your sickness to the peaceful galaxy. Humanity had been angry. There were calls for revenge, for war, for showing the Council what real violence looked like. But Earth's leaders were wiser than that. They knew humanity could not win a war against 47 species. Not yet. So Earth built the Sol barrier and went quiet. The galaxy forgot about the angry humans behind their wall, and humanity used those 200 years well. "Admiral," a voice broke through Taiwan's thoughts. He turned to see Captain Bora approaching. She was young, only 32, but she was the best starship commander in Earth's fleet. Taiwan had trained her himself. "What is it, Captain?" he asked. "We have a situation. The Council has sent a fleet to our barrier, 73 ships. They're demanding we lower the shield and allow them to enter." Taiwan felt his jaw tighten. "On what grounds?" "They claim they've received intelligence reports that we're developing quantum weapons. They say these weapons are too dangerous to exist. They want to inspect our facilities and confiscate our research." "Of course they do." Taiwan walked to the main command center with Bora following. The large room was filled with officers monitoring hundreds of screens. Everyone looked tense. On the central display, Taiwan could see the Council fleet. 73 ships arranged in a perfect formation. They looked impressive, sleek, and advanced. But Taiwan knew the truth. Those ships were designed for exploration and transport. They had weapons, but those weapons had not been fired in anger for thousands of years. The Council had no warriors. They had forgotten how to fight. "Get me Minister Deho," Taiwan ordered. A screen flickered to life, showing an older man sitting in an office on Earth's surface. Minister Deho was in charge of Earth's limited contact with the Council. He looked even more tired than Taiwan felt. "I see them, Admiral," Deho said before Taiwan could speak. "I've already sent them our official response. We refused their request." "How did they take it?" "They sent back an ultimatum. Lower the barrier within 24 hours or they will use force to breach it." Taiwan laughed without humor. "They want to breach the Sol barrier? They can barely understand the technology that makes it work. It would take them years, perhaps, but they're going to try. They've already begun scanning for weaknesses." Taiwan looked at the Council fleet again. He could see smaller ships breaking formation and moving closer to the barrier. They were deploying some kind of scanning equipment. "What do you want to do, Admiral?" Bora asked quietly. "I want them to leave," Taiwan said. "But I don't think they will. The Council has been the most powerful force in the galaxy for so long that they've forgotten what it's like to be told no." Dr. Hana entered the command center. She was Earth's chief xenobiologist and one of the few humans who still believed peaceful coexistence with the Council was possible. She had spent years studying Council species, trying to understand their cultures and psychology. "Admiral, let me talk to them," she said immediately. "I know their protocols. I can make them understand that this is a mistake." "Go ahead, Doctor," Taiwan said. "But I don't think they'll listen." Hana opened a communication channel to the Council fleet. Her face appeared on screens throughout the command center as she spoke. "This is Dr. Hana of Earth. I am requesting diplomatic dialogue with your fleet commander." There was a long pause. Then a face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The creature had blue skin and 4 eyes. It looked at Hana with obvious contempt. "I am High Commander of this Council Expeditionary Force. You will lower your barrier immediately. This is not a request." "High Commander, Earth has committed no crime," Hana said calmly. "We have honored our isolation agreement. We have not left our solar system. We have not contacted Council space. You have no legal right to demand entry to our territory." "We determine what is legal," the alien replied. "You are developing weapons that threaten galactic peace. This cannot be allowed." "We are developing defensive technology," Hana corrected, "to protect ourselves. Surely the Council recognizes our right to self-defense." "You have no rights. You are a contained species, a quarantine zone. When the Council says jump, you ask how high. Is that clear enough for your primitive mind to understand?" Hana's face remained calm, but Taiwan could see anger flashing in her eyes. "I believe this conversation is over," she said quietly and closed the channel. "Well," Minister Deho said from his screen, "I think we have our answer." "They're not interested in dialogue." "No," Taiwan agreed. "They think we're still the frightened humans from 200 years ago. They think we'll surrender because they have more ships." "What are your orders, Admiral?" Bora asked. Taiwan was quiet for a long moment. He looked around the command center at all the young officers watching him. Most of them had been born after the Sol barrier went up. They had never known a galaxy that did not fear and hate humanity. They had trained their whole lives for this moment, but they had never really believed it would come. "We wait," Taiwan said finally. "We give them every chance to turn around and leave. We do not fire first, but if they attack us, if they cross that line," he paused, "then we show them exactly why humanity chose peace." Outside the command center, beyond the barrier, the Council fleet continued its scans. They were confident. They had 47 species behind them. They had thousands of years of technological advancement. They had the moral authority of galactic law, but they did not know what humanity had built in 200 years of isolation. They did not know that every human ship, every human weapon, every human soldier had been designed for one purpose only: to fight and win against impossible odds. The Council thought they were dealing with a primitive species that would surrender at the first sign of force. They were about to learn the most important lesson in human history. Never back a peaceful species into a corner, because if they chose peace, they probably know how to do war very, very well. 20 hours had passed since the Council fleet arrived. Admiral Taiwan had not slept. He stood in the command center, watching the enemy ships move around the barrier like sharks circling prey. They were getting bolder now, moving closer, testing the shield's strength with various scanning techniques. Captain Bora sat at her station, monitoring Earth's defensive fleet. 500 warships were ready to launch at a moment's notice. They waited just inside the barrier, invisible to Council sensors. The enemy had no idea what was coming if they made the wrong choice. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Council fleet," an officer reported. "Put it through," Taiwan said. The same blue-skinned alien commander appeared on screen. "Your time is up, humans. Lower your barrier now or face the consequences." "Leave our system," Taiwan replied calmly. "This is your final warning. Leave now and there will be no conflict." The alien laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You dare threaten us? You have no idea who you're dealing with. The Council has maintained peace in this galaxy for millennia. We will not be intimidated by a species that barely knows how to leave its own planet." "We know exactly who we're dealing with," Taiwan said. "The question is, do you know who you're dealing with?" The alien's 4 eyes narrowed. "I'm done talking. You have 1 hour to comply. After that, we will use force." The transmission ended. Dr. Hana stood beside Taiwan. Her face was pale. "They're really going to attack. After all this time, they're going to start a war." "They don't think it's a war," Taiwan said. "They think it's pest control. They're about to learn the difference." 1 hour passed. The Council fleet began moving into attack formation. Minister Deho appeared on screen from Earth. "I've just received word from our intelligence network," he said. 3 Council destroyers are breaking away from the main fleet. They're heading toward Titan, Saturn's largest moon, home to 17 mining colonies and over 1,200 human civilians, families, children. scientists and workers who had nothing to do with this conflict. They wouldn't, Hana whispered. Those are civilian targets. They would, Taewon said grimly. They want to teach us a lesson. Show us what happens to species that disobey the council. Can we intercept? Bora asked, already running calculations. Not in time, Taewon said. Our ships are positioned near Earth. It would take 30 minutes to reach Titan. Those destroyers will be in firing range in 10. Everyone in the command center watched in horror as the 3 council ships approached Titan. Taewon immediately opened channels to the mining colonies. This is Admiral Taewon. Evacuate immediately. Get everyone to the underground shelters. This is not a drill, but there was no time. The council destroyers opened fire 5 minutes later. The weapons were precise and devastating. Energy beams cut through the dome of the largest colony like it was paper. Atmosphere vented into space. Buildings collapsed. The other 2 destroyers targeted the smaller mining stations, destroying them completely. Taewon watched the sensor readings as life signs disappeared. Hundreds at first, then thousands. By the time the attack ended, 1,247 humans were dead. The command center was completely silent. Many of the officers were crying. Bora's hands were shaking with rage. Even Hana, who had dedicated her life to peaceful dialogue, looked like she wanted to kill someone. The council fleet sent one more transmission. This is what happens when you defy the council. Lower your barrier or more colonies will be destroyed. Taewon closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter who lived on Mars with her family. He thought about all the civilians throughout the solar system who were now in danger. He thought about the 1,200 people who had just died for no reason other than galactic arrogance. When he opened his eyes, everyone in the command center was looking at him, waiting for his orders. Send this message to every human settlement in the solar system, Taewon said quietly. The war has begun. May God forgive us for what we're about to do. He turned to Bora. Captain, launch the fleet. All ships. Full combat readiness. Yes, sir. Bora's voice was cold and hard. She began issuing orders. Taewon opened a channel to Minister Daeho. Draft our response to the council. Tell them we're lowering the barrier. Hana looked at him in shock. Admiral, you can't be serious. After what they just did? I am serious, Doctor. Send the message, Minister. Daeho smiled grimly. He understood. Sending it now. 6 hours passed. Earth was completely silent. No transmissions. No messages. Nothing. The council fleet waited, watching their sensors. They thought humanity was paralyzed with fear. Then the Sol barrier began to power down. On the council flagship, alarms started blaring. Not warning alarms. Victory alarms, the aliens celebrated. The humans had surrendered just as they knew they would. Show a primitive species some real power and they always back down. The barrier collapsed completely. For the first time in 200 years, the solar system was open to the galaxy. And then the council fleet saw what had been hiding behind that barrier. 500 warships emerged from Earth's orbital shipyards. Not exploration vessels. Not transport ships. Pure weapons of war. Each one was twice the size of a council destroyer and bristled with technology the aliens had never seen before. Captain Bora's ship, the EDS Horizon, led the formation. She opened a channel to the council fleet. This is Captain Bora of Earth Defense Ship Horizon. You killed 1,200 of our people. You attacked civilian targets. You were warned and you did not listen. Now you will learn why humanity chose peace. The council commander appeared on screen. His 4 eyes were wide with shock. This is impossible. Our intelligence said you had no military capability. You were supposed to be helpless. Your intelligence was wrong, Bora said. We've had 200 years to prepare for this moment. 200 years to build weapons. 200 years to train soldiers. 200 years to get ready for the day when the council would finally cross the line. You cannot win, the alien said, but his voice was uncertain now. We have the entire Galactic Council behind us. 47 species, thousands of ships. Then you'd better call them, Bora replied, because you're going to need them. She closed the channel and gave the order to attack. The battle lasted 14 minutes. Human ships moved with precision the Council had never seen. Their weapons phased through shields like they were not even there. Missiles that bent space-time to reach their targets instantly. Energy beams that could not be blocked or dodged. Boarding parties that appeared inside Council ships through quantum teleportation. The Council fleet tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for police actions, not war. Their tactics were outdated. Their commanders had never actually fought a real battle. 40 Council ships were destroyed in those 14 minutes. The rest retreated, their shields failing and their hulls burning. Not a single human ship was damaged. On Earth, people watched the battle on their screens. They saw their military, built in secret over 2 centuries, finally revealed to the galaxy. They saw what humanity had become while hiding behind their barrier. Minister Deho sent one final message to the retreating Council fleet. You were warned. Earth remained quiet because we wanted peace. We built these weapons because we knew you would not let us keep that peace. Take this message back to your council. Leave us alone, or the next time we will not stop until we reach your home worlds. In the command center, Admiral Taiwan watched the Council ships flee. He felt no joy in the victory, only sadness for what had been lost. It started, he said quietly to Hana. There's no going back now. No, she agreed. But maybe we can still end this quickly, before more people die. Taiwan looked at the sensor displays showing the wreckage of Council ships floating in space. I don't think the Council is going to let it end quickly, Doctor. They've ruled the galaxy for too long. They won't surrender after one defeat. He was right. 3 days later, the Council declared total war on humanity. They called for the mobilization of the Grand Fleet. 2,000 ships from across 47 worlds. They were coming to destroy Earth completely, and humanity was ready. News of the Council's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light. 47 species watched the battle recordings in disbelief. For 3,000 years, the Council had been the ultimate power in known space. They had never lost a military engagement. They had never needed to. Now a single species had destroyed 40 ships in 14 minutes. The Council convened an emergency session on their capital station, Nexus Prime. Representatives from every member species argued and shouted at each other. Some wanted to negotiate. Others demanded immediate revenge. The recordings from the battle played over and over on every screen. They have weapons we don't understand, one representative said. Ships more advanced than anything we've built. How is this possible? They were supposed to be primitive. They had 200 years, another replied. 200 years of isolation while we ignored them. We should have monitored them more closely. We should have destroyed them when we first found them, a third voice added. In the end, the hardliners won the argument. The Council voted unanimously for total war. The Grand Fleet would be assembled. Every military ship from every member species would gather at the solar system and end the human threat forever. On Earth, Admiral Taiwan received intelligence reports about the Council's decision. He stood in the command center with Captain Bora and Dr. Hana reviewing the numbers. 2,000 ships, Bora said quietly. That's more than we expected. It's everything they have, Taiwan replied. They're throwing their entire military at us. They want to make an example out of humanity. Show the galaxy what happens to species that resist the Council. Hana looked at the star charts showing Council territory. We can't fight 2,000 ships, Admiral. Even with our technology, those numbers are overwhelming. We're not going to fight them in space, Taiwan said. He pulled up a tactical display. We're going to hit them before they can gather. Operation Reckoning begins now. For the next 2 weeks, human fleets appeared throughout Council space. Not to invade, not to conquer, to blockade. Captain Bora led her squadron to the Taurian system, home to the Council's largest shipyard. 30 human warships surrounded the facility and cut off all traffic. No ships in, no ships out. The Taurians could only watch helplessly as their military vessels sat trapped in dock. Other human fleets did the same across 12 star systems. Every major Council military base was suddenly surrounded. Trade routes were blocked. Communication networks were jammed. In 2 weeks, humanity had effectively paralyzed the Council's ability to mobilize. The Council representatives watched in growing horror as their Grand Fleet refused to materialize. Ships could not leave port. Supplies could not be transported. Commanders could not communicate with their forces. How are they doing this? One alien demanded. How are they everywhere at once? Dr. Hana could have told them. She had intercepted enough Council communications to understand their shock. Humanity had spent 200 years building not just weapons but a complete military infrastructure. Quantum communication networks that could not be jammed or intercepted. Jump drives that could move fleets across the galaxy in hours instead of weeks. intelligence networks that had been watching Council space for decades. Earth knew every Council military installation, every supply depot, every weakness in their defenses. While the Council had ignored humanity, humanity had been studying the Council very carefully. But the blockades were just the beginning. Minister Deho received an unexpected transmission from 6 Council member species. They wanted to talk in secret. He arranged a meeting in neutral space on a small trade station that Earth's fleet had not yet blockaded. Deho brought Dr. Hana with him. They met the alien representatives in a private chamber. "Why are you here?" Deho asked directly. The aliens looked nervous. One of them, a reptilian creature from the Sec system, spoke first. "Because we're tired of the Council. We've been tired for a long time." "What do you mean?" "The Council's enlightened peace is a lie," another alien said. "They maintain control through fear. Any species that develops technology they don't approve of gets sanctioned. Any world that questions their authority gets blockaded. They call it protecting galactic peace. We call it oppression." Hana leaned forward. "Are you saying the Council has been suppressing technological development across the galaxy?" "For centuries," the Sec representative confirmed. "They don't want any species to become powerful enough to challenge them. Your humanity discovered this quickly. That's why they quarantined you. You were advancing too fast, thinking too independently. You scared them." "So they tried to make an example of us," Deho said. "Yes. And now you've shown the entire galaxy that the Council can be beaten. Dozens of species are watching what you do next. If you win this war, everything changes. Why tell us this?" Hana asked. "Because we want to help you win," the alien said simply, "and we're not the only ones." Over the next few days, 6 Council species secretly defected to Earth's side. They provided intelligence about Council military plans. They sabotaged ships that were supposed to join the Grand Fleet. They spread messages throughout their worlds, encouraging resistance to Council authority. The Council leadership realized they were losing control. Their perfect order was crumbling, and they made a desperate decision. If they could not assemble the Grand Fleet in time, they would strike at Earth directly with the forces they already had. 700 ships were gathered at Nexus Prime. It was not the 2,000 they wanted, but it would have to be enough. The Council's plan was simple: jump directly to Earth and destroy it before humanity could react. Kill every human, burn every city, make sure no trace of the species remained. Then the Council could restore order and convince the galaxy that humanity had been too dangerous to live. Dr. Hana intercepted the battle plans 3 days before the attack was scheduled. She brought them to Admiral Taiwan immediately. "They're coming here," she said, her voice shaking. "Not to our military bases, not to our outer colonies. They're coming directly to Earth, and they're planning to destroy the entire planet." Taiwan looked at the intercepted plans. He saw the targeting coordinates. Every major city on Earth, every population center. The Council was not planning to invade. They were planning genocide. "How long do we have?" he asked. 3 days. "The fleet is assembling at Nexus Prime now." Taiwan turned to Captain Bora. "Recall all blockade fleets. I want every available ship back at Earth within 48 hours. That will release the Council forces we've been containing," Bora warned. "I know, but if we don't defend Earth, it won't matter what forces they have left. Pull everyone back. Prepare for the biggest battle humanity has ever fought." Minister Deho contacted the 6 defector species. "We need your help. The Council is coming to destroy Earth. If they succeed, your rebellion ends before it begins." "What do you need?" they asked. "Intelligence. Real-time updates on the Council fleet movements. And if you have any ships that can fight, send them." The defectors agreed. It would not be much, maybe 50 ships total, but every vessel would help. 2 days later, Captain Bora stood on the bridge of the EDS Horizon, positioned at the edge of Earth's solar system. Behind her were 200 human warships. The rest of the fleet was still returning from their blockade positions. "They're coming," her tactical officer reported. 700 Council ships just entered the system. On Earth, billions of people watched their screens. They saw the massive Council fleet appear. 700 ships against 200. The odds were not good. Admiral Taiwan addressed humanity from the command center. "People of Earth, the enemy is here. They come not to conquer but to exterminate. They want to erase us from existence because we dared to defend ourselves, because we refused to bow, because we showed them that their power is not absolute." He paused, looking directly into the camera. But we are not afraid. We have prepared for this moment for 200 years. We have built these ships. We have trained these soldiers. We have earned our right to exist. And today we show the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into the night. The Council fleet moved toward Earth, confident in their numbers. They did not know that humanity's 200 ships were worth more than their 700. They did not know that human captains had been training for exactly this scenario their entire lives. They did not know that humanity had been waiting for this battle since the day the Soul Barrier went up. Captain Bora opened a channel to the enemy fleet. This is your last chance. Turn around and leave. You cannot win this fight, the Council commander laughed. You're outnumbered more than 3-1. Surrender now and we may allow some of you to live as slaves. Wrong answer, Bora said and gave the order to attack. The battle for Earth began at 600 hours Solar Standard Time. Captain Bora's fleet of 200 ships faced 700 Council vessels in the space between Mars and Jupiter. The size difference was staggering. Council ships outnumbered humanity more than 3-1, but numbers were not everything. The first Council wave came in fast and confident. 200 ships broke formation and charged at the human defensive line. They expected an easy victory. They expected humanity to scatter and run. Instead, the human ships held their position and opened fire. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. Human weapons cut through Council shields like they were made of paper. Causality cannons fired projectiles that hit their targets before they were even launched, making dodging impossible. Reality anchors locked enemy ships in normal space, preventing any escape. Singularity missiles created tiny black holes that swallowed entire vessels. The first wave of Council ships was destroyed in 8 minutes. Not a single human ship took damage. The Council commander could not believe what he was seeing. He sent in the second wave, then the third. Each time, human vessels tore through the attackers with ruthless efficiency. Captain Bora coordinated the defense from the bridge of the EDS horizon. Her voice was calm and steady as she issued orders. Delta Squadron, focus fire on the carrier group at coordinate 774. Echo Squadron, protect our flanks. All ships maintain formation. Let them come to us. The battle raged for 8 hours. The Council threw everything they had at Earth's defenders. But human tactics were simply superior. Every captain knew exactly what to do. Every weapons officer had trained for this exact scenario. Every ship moved as part of a greater whole. By the time the sun set on Earth, the Council fleet was in full retreat. They had lost over 400 ships. The remainder fled the system, damaged and demoralized. Humanity lost 12 ships. On the command deck of the Council flagship, the alien commander stared at his displays in shock. This was impossible. The Council had never lost a battle. Never. In 3,000 years of galactic dominance, they had never been defeated in open combat. Until today, he sent an emergency transmission to Nexus Prime. The Grand Fleet has been destroyed. The humans are too strong. We must sue for peace immediately. But the Council leadership was not ready to surrender. Pride and fear drove their decisions. If they admitted defeat to humanity, every other species would see them as weak. The entire galactic order would collapse. No peace, they replied. We will negotiate new terms with the humans. Admiral Taiwan received the Council's offer 3 days after the battle. They wanted a ceasefire. They wanted to discuss boundaries and restrictions. They wanted to go back to the way things were before, with humanity contained and the Council in control. Taiwan read the message and deleted it. Send them our terms, he told Minister Deho. Total surrender. War crime trials for everyone involved in the attack on Titan. Dissolution of the Galactic Council as it currently exists. And reparations to every species they've oppressed over the last 1,000 years. Deho smiled grimly. They won't accept those terms, I know. But we're not negotiating anymore. They killed our people. They tried to exterminate our entire species. Now we finish what they started. Dr. Hana entered the command center. She looked troubled. Admiral, I need to talk to you about something. It's important. What is it, Doctor? I've been analyzing reports from the liberated sectors. The places where our blockades removed Council control. Some terrible things are happening. She pulled up images on the main screen, footage of aliens attacking each other. Species that had been held in check by Council authority were now seeking revenge on their former oppressors. Buildings burning. People dying. The Council kept the peace through fear and force, Hana explained. Now that we've removed that force, old hatreds are coming back. Species that were conquered centuries ago, remember? They want revenge. What do you want me to do about it? Taiwan asked. Send peacekeeping forces. Stop the violence before it spreads. We can't just break the council's order and walk away. We're responsible for what comes after. Taiwan was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the images of violence and chaos spreading across formerly council-controlled space. Hana was right. This was humanity's responsibility now. Captain Bora, he said, take a fleet to the affected sectors. Establish order. Protect civilians on all sides. Anyone who attacks civilians will be treated as a war criminal, regardless of which species they belong to. Yes, sir, Bora replied. Over the next month, human fleets moved throughout the galaxy, not as conquerors, as peacekeepers. They stopped riots. They protected refugees. They arrested those who committed atrocities, whether they were former council enforcers or newly liberated species seeking revenge. The galaxy watched in confusion. Humanity had just destroyed the council's military. They had the power to take control of everything, but instead, they were trying to maintain order and protect innocent lives. 6 more species defected from the council during this time. Then 12 more. Then 20. The council was collapsing from within as species realized they did not need to fear humanity. Earth was not interested in building an empire, but the council's hardline leadership refused to surrender. They gathered their remaining forces at Nexus Prime, the massive space station that had been the center of galactic government for 5,000 years. It was the most heavily defended location in known space. Admiral Taiwan knew the war would not end until Nexus Prime fell. He called a meeting with his senior officers. Captain Bora, Dr. Hana, and Minister Deho all attended. The council leadership has retreated to Nexus Prime, Taiwan explained. As long as they're there, they can claim legitimacy. They can rally support. They can continue this war indefinitely. You want to attack Nexus Prime, Bora said. That station has defenses that have never been breached. The council spent centuries making it impregnable. Nothing is impregnable, Taiwan replied. We have the technology, we have the tactics, and we have something the council has never faced before. What's that? Hana asked. Soldiers who know how to fight. The plan was called Operation Endgame. 50 human warships would assault Nexus Prime directly. Another 100 would block any council reinforcements. And Captain Bora would personally lead a boarding party to capture the council leadership alive. Why alive? Bora asked. Because we need trials, Minister Deho explained. We need the galaxy to see justice being done. If we just kill them, we're no better than they are. We become conquerors instead of liberators, Dr. Hana agreed. The galaxy is watching us. How we end this war will determine what comes after. We need to show that we're fighting for justice, not revenge. Captain Bora did not like it, but she understood. Fine, we take them alive. But if they resist, all bets are off. The assault on Nexus Prime began at dawn, Earth time. 50 human warships appeared around the massive station and opened fire. The station's defenses were formidable. Shields that could stop planet-killing weapons. Automated gun batteries that could track 1,000 targets simultaneously. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bays. But humanity had spent months analyzing Nexus Prime's defenses. They knew every weak point, every blind spot, every system that could be exploited. The battle was brutal and precise. Human ships targeted specific shield generators, creating gaps in the station's protection. Boarding pods launched through those gaps, carrying Marines in powered armor. The pods phased through the station's hull using the same technology that made human weapons so deadly. Captain Bora led the main assault team personally. She and 50 Marines materialized inside Nexus Prime's command center. Alarms blared. Council security forces opened fire. The fight lasted 30 minutes. Human Marines were better trained, better equipped, and far more experienced in actual combat than the Council's security forces. Bora's team fought through 6 levels of the station, neutralizing resistance and protecting civilian workers who got caught in the crossfire. Finally, they reached the Council chamber itself. The ruling representatives of 47 species were gathered there, watching the battle on screens and arguing about what to do. Bora's team breached the doors. She walked in with her weapon raised, her armor scorched from enemy fire. The war is over, she announced. You are all under arrest for war crimes. Specifically, the massacre of 1,200 civilians on Titan and the attempted genocide of the human species. The alien representatives looked at her with hatred and fear. One of them, the same commander who had spoken to Admiral Taiwan at the beginning of the war, stepped forward. "You cannot arrest the Council. We are the law. We are the authority. We are the order that holds the galaxy together." "Not anymore," Bora replied. She gestured to her Marines, who began placing restraints on the Council members. "You're just criminals now, and you're going to face justice for what you've done." News of the Council's capture spread across the galaxy within hours. The war was over. Humanity had won. The trials began 3 months after the fall of Nexus Prime. They were held on a neutral space station, far from both Earth and Council territory. Representatives from every species in the galaxy were invited to attend. Many came to watch justice being served. Others came to make sure humanity did not abuse its new power. Dr. Hana led the prosecution team. She had spent years studying Council species and their laws. Now she used that knowledge to build cases against the war criminals. The charges were simple and clear: massacre of civilians on Titan, attempted genocide of humanity, centuries of technological suppression and forced compliance across dozens of species. The evidence was overwhelming. Admiral Taiwan attended the trials but did not participate in them. He sat in the observation gallery, watching as the Council members tried to defend their actions. "We maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years, one alien testified. "Sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good." "You call genocide a difficult decision?" Hana asked coldly. "You ordered the extermination of an entire species because they refused to obey you. They were dangerous. Their violent nature threatened everyone. The only violence in this war came from you. Humanity asked to be left alone. You refused. You attacked first. You killed civilians. And when you lost, you tried to destroy their entire world. Where is the peace in that?" The trials lasted 6 months. In the end, 43 Council members were found guilty of war crimes. They were sentenced to imprisonment on various worlds, guarded by forces from multiple species to ensure fairness. 4 members were found not guilty, having voted against the war from the beginning. Minister Deho watched the final sentencing with satisfaction. Justice has been served. Now comes the hard part. "What's that?" Captain Bora asked. "Building something better." The galaxy was in chaos. The Council was gone, but so was the structure it had provided for millennia. Trade agreements were void. Defense pacts were meaningless. Hundreds of species suddenly had to negotiate with each other directly instead of going through Council mediators. Some species wanted Earth to take control. They were used to having a central authority and assumed humanity would fill that role. Others feared human domination. They remembered the Council's oppression and worried Earth would become the same kind of tyrant. Humanity had to decide what kind of power it wanted to be. Admiral Taiwan called a meeting with Earth's leadership. Military commanders, government officials, scientists, and philosophers all gathered to discuss the future. "We have a choice," Taiwan said. "We can build an empire. We have the military strength. The galaxy knows we can enforce our will if we choose to. Or we can build something different." "What did we fight for?" Dr. Hana asked the room. "We didn't go to war to conquer. We fought because the Council would not let us live in peace. Why would we now do to others what they tried to do to us?" "The galaxy needs structure," a government official argued. "Without some kind of central authority, there will be endless conflicts." "Then let's build that authority the right way," Minister Deho suggested. "Not rule from Earth, not impose our will, but create a system where every species has an equal voice." Over the next year, humanity worked with the defector species to create something new. They called it the Free Systems Alliance. The principles were simple. Every member species was equal. No single world could veto another's decisions. Technology sharing was encouraged, not suppressed. Each species could develop as they wished, as long as they did not harm others. Military forces were allowed for self-defense, but aggression against fellow members would result in collective action. Most importantly, membership was voluntary. Any species could join or leave as they pleased. 38 species joined immediately. They were the ones who had defected from the Council or suffered under its rule. They trusted humanity because Earth had proven itself different. Others waited and watched. They wanted to see if this new alliance was real or just another form of control. Captain Bora was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Alliance Defense Force. Her job was to protect member worlds and mediate disputes. It was harder than fighting a war. Combat had clear rules. Peacekeeping required diplomacy, patience, and judgment. She quickly learned that some conflicts had no good solutions. Ancient hatreds between species could not be resolved with warships and treaties. Some worlds wanted revenge on their former oppressors. Others feared being persecuted for crimes their ancestors committed. One day, Bora received a distress call from a mining colony in the Oralis system. Two species that both claimed the planet were fighting over it. Both sides had legitimate historical claims. Both refused to back down. Bora arrived with a small fleet and ordered both sides to cease fire. When they refused, she threatened to destroy their military assets and leave them defenseless. That got their attention. "You want this planet?" she told the representatives. "Then share it. Divide the mining rights. Establish joint colonies. Or both of you leave and let someone else have it. But you're not going to kill each other while I'm here." It took 3 months of negotiation, but eventually the two species agreed to share the planet. It was not a perfect solution, but it was better than war. Stories like that spread across the galaxy. The alliance was not perfect, but it was trying. Humanity was not perfect, but they were fair. Slowly, more species began to join. Dr. Hana established the Institute for Interspecies Understanding. It had branches on 40 worlds within 2 years. Scientists, diplomats, and philosophers from dozens of species worked together to solve problems and build connections. One of her first projects was a comprehensive history of the galaxy. Not the sanitized version the Council had promoted, but the real history. The wars, the conquest, the injustices that had been buried and forgotten. "We cannot build a better future by pretending the past did not happen," Hana told her students. "We must acknowledge what was done wrong, learn from it, and do better." 5 years after the war ended, the Free Systems Alliance had grown to 60 member species. Trade was flourishing. Scientific collaboration was producing breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the Council's restrictions. Art and culture were exchanged freely. But challenges remained. Remnant Council loyalists conducted terrorist attacks on Alliance worlds. Some species still sought revenge on their historical enemies, and rumors began spreading about an unknown threat from beyond the galaxy's edge. Admiral Bora investigated these rumors. She sent scout ships to the frontier regions where the Council had rarely ventured. What they found was disturbing. Ancient ruins, signs of massive battles, entire star systems that had been sterilized of all life, and warnings, left by species long dead, about something terrible that lived in the darkness between galaxies. Bora brought this information to the Alliance Council. The Council was not just keeping the galaxy peaceful, she explained. They were keeping it hidden. They built their civilization in a safe region of space and never ventured far because they were afraid of what they might find. "What did they find?" a representative asked. "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it destroyed dozens of civilizations more advanced than anything we've seen, and it might be coming back." The Alliance faced its first real test, an unknown enemy that the Council had been too afraid to confront. A threat that made their recent war seem insignificant by comparison. But the Alliance had something the Council never had. Unity built on trust instead of fear, technology shared freely instead of hoarded, and species who had learned to work together instead of being forced into compliance. Admiral Taiwan came out of retirement to help plan the defense. He was older now, his hair completely gray, but his mind was still sharp. The Council failed because they built their peace on lies, he told the Alliance leadership. They suppressed technology because they feared change. They controlled through intimidation because they feared losing power. When a real threat appeared, they chose to hide instead of face it. "What do we do differently?" Dr. Hana asked. "We prepare. We research. We build defenses not just for Earth, but for every world in the Alliance. And when this threat arrives, we face it together, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals." Minister Deho, now elderly but still active in Alliance politics, gave a speech to the assembled representatives. 5 years ago, humanity wanted nothing more than to be left alone. We asked for peace and isolation. The Council refused and forced us into war. We won that war, but we did not seek to dominate. We built this alliance because we believe in freedom, equality, and cooperation. He paused, looking at the diverse species gathered before him. "Now we face a new challenge, an unknown enemy that may threaten all of us. But I believe we will survive, because we learned the most important lesson. Peace maintained through fear and suppression is no peace at all. Real peace comes from respect, trust, and the willingness to stand together when darkness comes. The representatives voted unanimously to prepare for the coming threat. Resources were pooled. Scientists collaborated on new defensive technologies. Military forces from dozens of species began training together. Captain Bora, now a seasoned admiral, oversaw the preparations. She thought about how much had changed in just 5 years. Humanity had gone from isolated and hated to the foundation of a new galactic order. Dr. Hana continued her work building understanding between species. She knew that the bonds they formed now would be tested when the unknown threat arrived. Every day of peace was an opportunity to make those bonds stronger. Admiral Taiwan watched from his farm on Earth. He had done his part. Now it was the next generation's turn to defend the galaxy. He thought about the 1,200 people who died on Titan. About the thousands more who died in the war that followed. About whether it had all been worth it. Then he looked up at the stars and saw ships from dozens of species traveling freely between worlds. Trading, talking, learning from each other, building something better than what the Council had created. Yes, it had been worth it. The galaxy had learned a difficult lesson. When you force peaceful people into a corner, when you give them no choice but to fight, you discover exactly why they chose peace in the first place. Because they knew how to do war better than anyone. But more importantly, they knew how to do peace better too. Earth had remained quiet for 200 years, not out of fear but out of wisdom. They had built weapons not for conquest but for defense. And when the war was over, they built alliances instead of empires. The unknown threat was still coming. The galaxy would face challenges that made the Council War seem small. But this time they would face it together. As equals, as partners, as friends. And that made all the difference.